Hi guys, so we are here again after such a long time, no doubt, because the immigration thing, like so many rules are changing and so many things are happening around all of you, around us. So we are here today and we are going to tell you all the rules and regulations to apply for spousal open work permit. How can you get eligible for that, and who is eligible, who can apply and who cannot, and what all the documents you will be needing. So again, the pattern is gonna stay the same. I'm gonna ask some questions to Ankur and he's gonna answer.
No, but I have a question first.
Oh.
Why do you always ask the question? Why don't you answer the question?
Okay, we'll decide this in the next video because I'm prepared for the questions. You are the pro now.
Okay.
Okay, so my first question is eligible to apply for their spousal open work permit.
So anybody who's a spouse of a student and work permit holder in Canada can be eligible. Highlighted can be.
Okay, you mean to say not all the students are work permit
No.
holders?
So the recent changes which came into effect on January 2025 and the implementation began on March 2024.
Okay.
So according to those rules, few students who are studying here in bachelor degree, not all bachelor degrees again, there are some bachelor degrees which are eligible to sponsor, and then there are master degrees which are 16 months or longer in studies can be eligible to sponsor their spouses.
Okay, okay.
And about the work permit holders, if a work permit holder is working in particular NOC, which means tier 0 and tier 1 all the NOCs, and then there are few NOCs from tier 2 and 3 which are eligible to sponsor, and the work permit holder should have at least 16 months of work permit valid, then they can sponsor their spouse.
Okay, so you mean to say, for example, there are some master's degree जो कि एक साल में complete हो जाती है, which is like 2 semesters, right? So उनके तो obviously study permit पे 16 months तो नहीं होंगे.
So in that case, they are not eligible to sponsor. So the
Okay.
rules and criteria
चाहे वो master
has to
degree
be
में ही
met.
है.
Yes.
Oh wow, okay. And what about the people holding, jobs of tier 4 and 5?
Of course, no.
Oh, they can also not.
So again, tier 01, all the occupations, tier 2 and 3, few occupations. The list is available on canada.ca, or in case audience wants to call us to know if they are eligible to sponsor their spouse or no, they can always call us. We can check their occupation.
Okay. And like what about the, like for example, like there is some kind of student who has completed their study for like 2 years, which is 16 months, right? So if they've completed their study and their work permit is on applied status, can they apply?
Okay. So this line is not clearly mentioned in the rules, but if you dig deep into canada.ca website, you'll find this rule changed as well. You need to have a valid work permit before you apply for dependent spousal open work permit. If you are on implied status and applying for a dependent spousal work permit, it may get refused because you do not have the current valid work permit, which is valid for more than 16 months.
Okay, so जैसा कि हमें पता ही है कि कई cases में like at this moment processing timeline of like their PGWP approval is like quite long than before. Like it was never this much. Like usually I am hearing cases every day that some people are getting their work permit after 7 months, after 8 months, even after 1 year. I have heard that. So how are they gonna sponsor their spouse?
So in case
Even
if
if
they
they're
want to
having
sponsor
the-
their spouse from outside, they will need to wait for the work permit, get the job as per the mentioned tiers and NOC codes, and then apply for dependent spousal open work permit. In case if their spouse is already here in Canada, they want to extend their work permit, then it is better to take their spouses to visitor record to maintain their status. Once sponsor's work permit is there and they have the required job, they can then bring them back to the dependent spousal open work permit from visitor record.
Okay, okay. So having a job of tier 0 and 1, like definitely that experience while like somebody is on applied status, so they can claim their work experience in their express entry, but for sure like they cannot use it to get the spousal open work permit.
That is correct.
Okay, wow.
So see, this is how IRCC is working these days.
okay, yeah, like
There
this
are
situation
changes,
is.
there are changes every day in all the categories. It is just not the dependent spousal work permit. There are changes everywhere. So you need to remain updated what is going on right now and file your case according to that.
And what about somebody like there are some occupations are in demand, right? Like healthcare, trade. So if somebody is coming for studies on diploma program in these categories, so can they apply because they are in demand?
No, that's fine. They are in demand, but they may be in demand for the PR categories.
Okay.
But for dependent spousal work permit, the rule says either you should be studying in bachelor degree, particular bachelor degree, not all the bachelor degrees, or it has to be master's degree more than 16 months.
Okay. So seems like the scenario is too tough these days.
So UG program, which means certificate programs and diploma courses, not at all eligible to sponsor their spouses.
Okay. That's so sad. Can they apply for the visitor visa of their spouses?
Of course, visitor visa can be applied, but visitor visa is always the discretion of the officer if they want to grant or no. And these days, visitor visa scenario is too tough. Even I've seen recent cases where a citizen sponsored their parents, and that got refused for no reason.
Okay.
And even those parents had a previous Canadian visa.
Oh wow.
And that was refused next time, saying that you do not have financial assets to support your visit. How crazy that is.
But it seems like IRCC is working not in a favor of whoever is here. They're just
They have no
giving
reason. Yeah, they have no reason to deny that. They're just denying.
That's utter nonsense. I'm sorry to use this word on camera, but yeah, that's not fair. Anyways, so if let's say, as I said, there are some occupations are in demand like skilled trade and healthcare. So you said like most of these occupations comes under like tier 2 or 3.
Yes.
So can there, like if somebody is a work permit holder and they are having this job, they're working in the similar kind of jobs, can they apply for this?
So again, not all the knocks. We need to see that particular knock in which they're working, if that is there in the list.
Okay, so the list.
So there is no vague answer. We can always check in the knock codes if their knock code is there in the list or no.
Okay, okay. And what are the usual documents that definitely our audience would want to know that? So what kind of basic documents are needed in order to apply for their spousal open work permit if other criteria that we just discussed are meeting?
Okay, so document checklist usually varies from case to case.
Okay.
So इसके बारे में हम कोई generic list नहीं बना सकते हैं, but when we discuss the application with the client, we know the actual scenario, that how their relation is, how did they build it, and what the applicant is doing, what the sponsor is doing. So we usually create a customized checklist for every case, every applicant. But for generic scenario, dependent spousal work permit is usually on the basis of the spouse. So the base of the work permit is the marriage, the genuinity of the marriage. So what documents can you provide in case if you want to prove the genuinity?
Okay.
So those will be marriage documents.
Okay.
How do you sponsor each other financially, mentally?
Pictures,
Yes.
joint accounts.
So yes,
and
then
marriage certificate, of course.
sponsors, job letter, pay stubs, T4, whatever maximum documents you can provide in support to meet the eligibility criteria of working in that particular NOC.
Okay, and also, like you mean to say the onus lies on the spouse, like applicant, not the applicant, the sponsor. For spousal open work permit, because they need to show their financial.
So yes, dependent spousal open work permit, the main basic criteria first is the genuinity of the marriage, and second, as per the recent rules, sponsor has to be working in that particular NOC. They should have those documents which are required by IRCC.
Okay.
Only then they can sponsor and they can become an eligible sponsor.
So definitely, I feel like they need to show that they are financially stable in order to like take care of their spouse,
Yeah,
like whoever.
that's why the job comes into effect.
Okay.
Because they are working in that NOC which is in demand, and they are earning enough to support their spouse when they come into Canada.
So is there anything like any specific wage rate that they should be working on it, or it can be a minimum wage job as well?
So it can be a minimum wage job as well, but the NOC has to be in the list.
From the list, okay.
So NOC, wage does not matter. It can be a minimum wage job too.
Okay, okay.
But usually the NOCs which are mentioned in the list are usually the higher paying than the median jobs, the median wage.
But how the Canadian labor market is working, they're not paying enough to their like workers.
Yeah,
But
it is what it is.
but anyways, like you were saying, it's for the spouses. Like, what about the common law partners?
It remains the same.
Okay.
So common law partner category is also seen in the same way as dependent spousal work permit, or if you're sponsoring your partner for PR, in case if you're PR or citizen, then the requirement remains the same. It's just the marriage document which is not mandatory in that case. Rest all the documents are required.
But instead of marriage documents, do they need to? Because like common law is like they need to show like when they're applying for their application 1 year before that, like they should be living together.
Yes, so they need to have proof that they have been living together for 1 year. Only then they fall under the criteria of common law partner.
Okay, cool. So yeah, these were all my questions. I guess you have answered all my questions.
Thankfully, I'm able to answer.
Yeah, you always do. But anyways, like if you want to give any advice to our audience, then definitely.
So guys, जब भी आपको कोई application apply करनी है, it's not just about dependent spousal open work permit, be it PGWP, study permit extension, visitor visa या कोई भी PR की application. Make sure that you know the latest rules because every day कुछ ना कुछ changes होते हैं. And ऐसा ना हो कि हम पुराने rules के according file submit करें and that get refused because we never know that अगर वो एक ही chance हमें मिलने वाला है या उसके बाद भी कोई chance मिलने वाला है. So let's not waste that one chance and get it approved.
Can I ask one more question? I just got to know. Okay. So for example, somebody is working, as I mentioned, like when they are on applied status of their work permit, they are working in some, let's say tier 0 or 1 job, some manager level job. For example, hypothetical situation, right? And then they are working, but at the time they got their work permit, right? So they have that job still, but they're not liking, they wants to, they just want to keep it away, like they get out of that job, right? And as you mentioned, like we will be needing 3 recent pay stubs in order to apply for that. So once their application is in process, spousal open work permit, with all the rules that you mentioned, they are meeting all the criteria. So after like applying, can they leave their job? Because 3 pay stubs were needed.
So technically they can leave the job, but practically they should tell IRCC that they have left this job, and because they won't meet the criteria in that case. Or else if they have changed their job and the next job, and that knock also falls under those eligible
But they have to inform the IRCC,
IRCC
right?
update them with the new job letter and pay stubs. That should be the answer to this question.
Okay, but isn't like it should work like that? Like when they're submitting the document, they should be meeting the eligibility criteria, or they should once they're getting the result?
It has to go through in the whole process.
Oh wow. Okay.
Because if you read the website and IRPA, IRPR, it says that you need to meet the criteria for the whole period. It is not just to put the application.
No, I understand. It's just like there was some kind of hypothetical situation in my head, so I just wanted to get that clear. But yeah, unfortunately guys, like even if you're not liking your job, but your job is giving your spouse an open work permit, then definitely you have to bear that.
Of course. There is no other choice in case if you want to reunite with your spouse and you want your spouse to come to Canada and work with you to earn you a living, and you should make enough money in that case.
Yes, so there are pros and cons of everything, I feel like. So guys, anyways, like this is end of our video. If you want to like inquire further about it, then definitely you can reach out to us. Like the numbers are already on the website and even on our Instagram page if you want to reach out. And yeah, hope for the best. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks guys.